Hello, and welcome to Be Yoga Fit.NYC's very first podcast. My name is Paul Adam Sanchez, and I'm the founder, lead yoga teacher, personal trainer, and wellness coach with Be Yoga Fit.NYC. Today we are joined with us by professional life coach Nabil Idrisi. Nabil, thank you very much for being on the call.
I'm glad to be here.
Great. So why don't you tell us a little bit more about yourself?
Sure. So as you said, I'm a coach, and I help people overcome their fears in achieving their biggest dreams.
Mm. Yeah, that's a good job.
It's
a good job.
But I love it. Yeah.
Okay. Could you maybe expound a little bit more about that? Like, how do you do that?
Sure. So often we get stuck in negative patterns in our lives, and these patterns inhibit us from seeing new possibilities, from being able to move forward towards a truer path for ourselves. And it's by acknowledging our feelings and moving forward that we can actually be able to achieve those dreams. So I help clients kind of recognize their truths that maybe have been denied. Maybe they've been denying it to themselves, or they've been denied by other people. And by as you say too, awareness is the first step towards change and acceptance.
Absolutely, and that's why we're here today, right? To raise awareness on empowering ourselves. And so that brings us to the focus of the call, which is de-escalating conflict, how to create more peace with ourselves and others. And so, Nabil, I know this is your baby, so why don't you take the lead on this? How can we de-escalate conflict and create more peace for ourselves and others?
Sure. So I'm really impassioned about this topic right now. A lot of people are coming to me saying, Nabil, I'm going through like such and such conflict with, a friend or a partner, how do I move through this? And so I've been trying out different techniques, and today I'd love to share 3 practices for de-escalating conflict. Great. So the first one I'll start with is to speak your feeling. So often in conflict, emotions are heightened, and a tendency for a lot of us is just to say, hey, you're being blank, you're being aggressive, you're not being fair, pointing the finger to the other person. And this is just the opposite of de-escalating conflict. This actually usually escalates conflict, and it's not usually a productive way to go. What I would recommend is, instead of saying any sentence that starts with you are blank, reframe the sentence and focus on yourself first and say, I'm feeling blank. So I'm feeling hurt right now. I'm feeling unappreciated. I'm feeling unrecognized. Whatever the feeling is, I think it's more productive to start there. And it doesn't have to be rationalized or fully processed, but just to recognize what feeling is inside of you, and just to share that with the other person can be very powerful. Yes,
I love that. It really is. It's bringing that awareness to the self, which is what yoga is about, right? Yoga is the practice of taking the focus from the outside world, which is much easier, and drawing it inward, which can often be more comfortable, more challenging, and it definitely requires more responsibility. I can attest to that with myself, and this is one of the reasons why I wanted to focus the conversation within the self, right? Because that's, it's my job to focus on my body and transmit that information to other people so they can learn their bodies better. And our bodies are so, deep and rich in many levels, physical, mental, emotional. And so there's, I struggle with conflict within myself a lot of the time. I'm sure that relates to other people, but specifically with my own feelings, for example. I'm a pretty emotional guy sometimes. I'm Latin. We're very passionate and hot-headed, and so that can be a blessing and a curse. And when it's a curse, it's usually because it's interesting that you mentioned this. I'm blaming myself for what my conflict is, instead of maybe just acknowledging the reality of the situation. So instead of acknowledging to myself, I feel upset, I compound the problem by being upset with myself for being upset. It's like, I shouldn't feel upset. I should never feel negative at all. I'm a yogi. That's not true. The yogi will notice and acknowledge the negativity and be present to it, have that awareness. So yeah, I think that that's a great, powerful practice for me to take on, is to at least, if I find myself having conflict within myself, to just sort of raise my awareness and call it what it is. Okay, I'm having some conflict here. I'm feeling this way. I'm going to take that on.
I love that. And how cool would it be if everyone did that? If everyone was more honest with how they're feeling, and there wasn't so much of this second guessing. I just had a friend recently tell me that she often creates all these elaborate stories of how other people are betraying or abandoning her. And I'm like, wow, that's her version of it. But I have my own version. I create these elaborate stories too of like what people are doing. But these are just stories. If we can get to the core of what we're feeling, for me, it's like, I'm scared of being abandoned. I'm scared of being hurt. Then it's just such a greater self-awareness.
Yeah, that's beautiful. All right, next, let's bring it on.
All right. So the next one I want to share is to recognize a call for love. So by this I mean, when we're in the throes of a conflict, emotions are heightened, maybe words are being flung, and our tendency is to recognize these negative emotions at surface level. So you're seeing, perhaps you're seeing anger manifest in the other person. However, a powerful reframe for me has been that it's not just merely anger that's happening. Below that, there's a deeper call for love. So this person, perhaps they're exhibiting this deeper need, in a destructive way to others or their, people around them. But if you recognize that is coming from some deeper place that's not being nourished, that's not being nurtured, that can often be a hugely more empowering way to de-escalate the conflict. Because then, when you recognize that, this person it's not really about what they're saying they're angry about. There's actually a deeper thing going on. So similarly to how we were just talking about, having our own self-awareness about deeper stuff, it's also being aware that other people have their deeper stuff as well. And once you recognize that there's a deeper call for love, you can respond in a way that I think is much more likely to mitigate the conflict.
That's just beautiful. And I think that's basically what compassion looks like in action, right? It's taking away the judgment against another's supposed or perceived negativity, and understanding, putting yourself in their position and understanding that sort of deeper pain. I love it. And, I can relate it to myself for sure, because I definitely feel that way when I'm having an upset, whatever you want to call it, whatever negative emotion it might be. There's definitely just that need for love. That's love and acceptance. And the ironic thing is, and I think maybe a lot of people can relate here, is instead of honoring or acknowledging that need within myself, what I'll do, and I kind of mentioned this before in the previous tip, was I compound the problem by beating myself up, mostly just judging myself for feeling that way in the first place. And so here I can see an opportunity to fulfill that need for love within myself. It's great if I can get it from someone else, but sometimes it's not available. And in the end, we all definitely need to love ourselves more. So in that place, instead of judging myself and compounding the problem, just say, wow, I'm feeling this way because I just need a little bit more love. And if I accept myself instead of reject myself, I'm going to feel a lot better about it.
Agreed. I love that.
Yeah. All right. Wonderful. Okay, so let's bring it on home, Nabil.
Sure. So the last one is simply take a break. So what I mean by this is when we're, again, in the heat of the moment, emotions are heightened, it's totally okay to take a break. I've actually had to learn this, very recently, and for me to be able to stand up and just say, this is actually what I need to take a break. I actually don't need to be sitting here and receiving all the negativity projected from the other person in one go.
But we could spread it out over time.
Let's spread it out.
I see the power in that for sure. Please continue.
And so that's been my own kind of recognition of how I deal with conflict. I've just sat and taken it. Like through my childhood, when I was younger, I would just I didn't know I'm a conflict avoider. That's in my past. And so when conflict is thrust onto me, I just don't know what to do, how to react, and so the other person is just yelling or getting angry with me, and I just kind of just take it because I didn't have helpful coping mechanisms. So now, as I'm experimenting more with actually taking ownership of what I can do to direct the course of the discussion or the conflict, I've realized that I have complete power. I'm a partner with the other person in addressing the disagreement or the conflict going on. So I'm a full partner in this, and as a full partner, I have a right and a power to say that I need a break. So if that means, hey, can we cool down, just sit in different rooms for 5 minutes and come back, or can we talk again tomorrow or next week? All of those, any of those are okay, and that I think can help de-escalate conflict.
Yeah, I think you might have just saved the best for the last there. I don't know, just because it's so simple. Its power is in its elegance of simplicity, I think, and I can see the value of that in my own life, especially my challenges. Being a hot-headed individual as I can be sometimes, certainly much less these days, but there's this impatience that can come within an argument. It's, and not just within the argument, but any sort of conflict. It's or negative feeling, for example, right? It's I'm feeling this negative feeling. I want it to be over as soon as possible.
Yeah.
Let me just, dive right in right now. And oftentimes, in my past as well, especially I could think of a couple relationships where people would even tell me, hey, let's hold off on this and come back to it. And I'd be like, no, I want to talk about it now. because of that impatience. Or and impatience is really just an expression of attachment, right? Or an aversion, perhaps, to something. And so that's what yoga encourages us to do, is to give up our attachments to things. And through that, we can find more peace in our lives. And I think, come to think of it, there's a great teacher who encourages, meditation and even taking a nap, when you find yourself in the midst of, negative emotions that are overpowering. Because just by removing the attachment, or even the aversion, as it were, you can find more peace in your life. And so meditating, letting go, allowing for some patience, I could see that being a really powerful transformative tool in terms of creating more peace in our lives, as meditation clearly is.
That's great. I love that. I find myself doing that. I find myself tired when I'm experiencing a lot of these intense feelings, and so I gravitate towards taking naps. So that's good. Good validation.
Yeah, excellent. Well, Nabil, that's all the time we have for today. Thank you so much for joining us, and thank you everyone out there who's listening to our call. And stay tuned. There are going to be more amazing ideas and transformational topics to come. So thank you very much.